have like is that part of it? Are emergency folks somewhere nearby and know what's about to happen at this house? I mean, it could have been an officer that was shot and needed attention. I mean, do they anticipate that and that become part of the group? You know, after we bust in and we shoot up the place, somebody may be alive.
Well, yeah. In most SWAT teams, there is a medical officer that's embedded in the team. In some jurisdictions, it's a EMT that has received SWAT training. In other jurisdictions, it's an officer that's an EMT. It just depends on the jurisdiction. But I can tell you that saving lives is paramount once you have had to deploy lethal force, and there's just no justification for that. You have to try to save the lives, regardless of how heinous the crime might have been or whatever the circumstances were. Whether they were shooting 700 rounds down range at you. At the end of the day, that's what you're there for. Once you have stabilized that scene, it's all about saving lives. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Right.
So I just had Stacy send me an article. I guess it was a black officer that shot and killed a white woman. And he's on leave with no pay. The family received $20 million, but no charges have been brought up, I guess, forth at this point. I'm not sure. Did you guys hear anything about that?
Where was that case?
I'm not sure. I didn't get the whole article, but the settlement, he pretty much wanted me to see the settlement versus Breonna's settlement.
Well, yeah, I need to see that, what the jurisdiction was. I'm sorry, they meant I was talking over you.
I'm sorry, I was talking over you. I said, so it looked like, according to that article, a white life is worth $8 million more than a black life.
Right.
Well, it's difficult to say what goes into these settlements, but I can tell you, those are two big settlements. But again, at the end of the day, particularly in Breonna's case, that is not going to bring her back. It's certainly not going to lessen the pain of her family. And Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow.
And then Sammy would like to know, will the city continue to show tribute and honor to Breonna? Do you guys think they'll keep doing stuff for her?
Oh, I think so. I don't think the tributes and those types of things are going to end. I think that not only is she going to continue to be honored in communities across the country, I think that the case also is going to become a case study in police departments across the country. I think this is, once they decide what information they're going to release publicly, this will be one of those cases that's studied by not only entry-level recruits, but city managers and mayors and command staff personnel and others. Because if you look at this thing, you've just got all kinds of things at all levels that created concerns for the community. You alluded to it earlier, Shannon. You were talking about Miss Taylor's family was going from hospital to hospital. The initial information that came out was telling the public that the SWAT team hit the wrong house, and there was just a whole lot of things that sort of made this thing grow even more into an inferno than just the situation itself that resulted in Miss Taylor's death. So to answer your question, I don't think that her name is going to fade away from the public for a long time.
Good to know.
Then bad. Do you have anything else, sir? I can see the look on your face.
I was looking up that other case that Shannon was talking about the guy getting 20. Justine Diamond was the woman who was killed.
Sure.
and the city of Minneapolis pays the family $20 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, large judgments are not uncommon these days. If you look at, and this didn't result in any deaths, but even if you look at the misconduct of the gun trace task force in Baltimore, the city is starting to pay millions of dollars per case for that situation. And, that's something that jurisdictions deal with every day. They actually have, especially in your larger jurisdictions, they have, teams of lawyers. That's all they do is deal with civil stuff from, public safety, corrections, fire, if they have, all kinds of different services they offer. And they, sometimes it's cheaper to write a check for $500,000 to $1 million than to take these things to the hoop. But one of the other interesting texts I got here was one saying that you got folks that are calling people down in Kentucky to see, what the hell, what's going on down there and who is this guy? And so this thing has really set off some alarm bells across the country. And I'm just hoping that people will understand that it's, you can certainly talk about the community doesn't seem to appreciate us and all these other types of things. But again, you're going to hear me keep saying it and keep saying it. That's not going to change until people get in a room and have the opportunity to talk about their concerns historically and contemporaneously, and then everyone moves forward, in a productive fashion. It's just, and you'll hear me say this too. Again, no agency can be successful without the support of the community. It just can't happen. You need the community. The community needs the police, and the police need the community. And if that's not, and if there's just butting of the heads, it's not going to work. And at the end of the day, you're going to see what's happening in some cities where they don't have those relationships, where you're seeing homicides, increase every month, and you're seeing closure rates going down because people are not coming forward, not because they're afraid, because of trust. And nobody wins. That just doesn't benefit anyone.
Yeah. So one of the texters, Bonita said that civil has absolutely nothing to do with criminal. Thankfully, they settled prior to this blankety blank. Just a little angry emoji.
Sure.
They may not even receive the $12 million had this happened. Had the civil case come out after this.
Sure.
That's a good point. It's still just a good point, but it's just a bad situation all the way around. So it remains to be seen. I know we're coming up on near the end, but she's absolutely right there, man. The civil, even the criteria for civil cases is different from criminal cases, and she's absolutely right about that. But that whole civil piece is that whole process of trying to make people whole again. And but again, as we all know, it might make your pockets feel a little better, but your heart is still hurting. So that's just a terrible thing to happen. And Thin Bad, we talked about this a couple months ago, and we were saying, man, I hope we don't have to have this conversation again, but we're having it again. And again, I'm just hoping that things will at some point get better and get civil, so that they can really start moving forward and doing some good things. I mean,
do we have time for one more question?
We sure do.
Stephanie would like to know, let me see. Let me make sure I read this right. She wants to know, since we're in COVID and everybody's home and things have slowed down a lot, like everybody's life has slowed down a lot, would we had missed this if it wasn't due to COVID? Like, would we have missed what happened to Breonna, what happened to Floyd? Would we have missed it because we're used to our day-to-day routines, like going to work, not getting on social media like we are now because we have more time? Would we have missed it? Would it have been this much, I don't want to say, would we have paid attention to it like we are now?
Go ahead then, Matt.
Probably not. I think, we would have heard it. But I think what added, fuel to all of these protests that have happened is the cumulative effect of all of the stuff that's been going on this year, from COVID, everything. People were in their homes, and that's it. People were in their homes and watching this stuff. They were already frustrated being at home. Couldn't go out. They couldn't do anything. Kids were still home, in school and or otherwise. Everybody was getting on everybody's nerves. And now all I can do is watch TV. And every month, every couple of weeks, I'm watching something, and somebody Black is being shot, killed, shot at, something. And so the getting out, it's almost like an explosion of emotion and everything else. It's like, this is enough. Enough is enough. And I don't think I can't say, it's hard to prove a negative, but I would think that you would not have had, I don't think the support, I think Black folk would always come out, but I don't think you would have had the white folk come out like you have if they weren't stuck in watching the same thing, because that's really what changed, even back in the civil rights stuff, that media, that seeing it, it's one thing to hear it, but when you see it, it's almost like when you see something, you got to do something. Just as a human being, you have to do something if you see enough of it. And granted, a lot of folks haven't, they've seen a lot of injustice over years or have heard about it. But when it's right there in your face, everybody's watching news, everybody's watching the same thing. So I think it helped in terms of having other people come on board. Now you have, Black Lives Matter lawn signs in Charlottesville, Virginia, in some places and things like that, where you would not have had before, because I think it brings it home. It brings the injustices, it brings the deaths right into your home, into your living room. And it's hard to ignore. So that's what made the difference in the civil rights movement, when people saw people being beaten. Because some things you can't unsee. That made the difference in the Vietnam War. That made the difference in everything. So I think it made a difference here. And no, everyone would not have been still looking. We'd all been caught up in the busyness of our day-to-day lives, and we would not have seen what it is. We've seen it. I don't care if they don't show another one on TV. I see it, I believe it, I know it. But in order to get the other allies that we have, I think that made a big difference.
Yeah.
Last question, I guess. It's my last one, Mike.
Sure, go ahead.
What's the thoughts on shutting the city down, the curfew? Because I know I saw a lot of protesting earlier today. How do we feel about, the city being shut down early?
Well, that was a tactical move, because they knew that with this jury, they probably known for a minute that this decision was coming out, and they had to prepare for that. And just from the demonstrations that happened across the country, that happened across the country when this thing first broke, I think they anticipated that it was only going to be more people out in the street when they found out what the grand jury came back with. So I'm not surprised that they had a curfew and that kind of stuff, just based on the outcome of the last riots and so forth. However, and from the tactical perspective, I get that, but that's not going to change the minds of the people that are hurt by this, that are confused by this, that are outraged by this, that are that can't understand this. That's not going to change. You know, people are